The Hyundai Santa Fe is one of the most important models for the Hyundai brand, representing 15% of total volume of 2023 sales. The nameplate is one of Hyundai's oldest, with the first one showing up in the year 2000. So there's history here also on top of high expectations. Now in its 5th generation platform, the new Santa Fe, from a distance, looks like a Land Rover Defender 130. Hyundai has taken a bold step and cheated on the car design test. And this isn't the first time car companies seem to have copied from other cars. In 2013, Ford pretended as if it still owned Aston Martin and stole their nose. They should have stolen everything else from Aston Martin because the rest of that car was forgettable. But to be fair to the Hyundai design team, everyone else seems to also be copying the Land Rover Defender. This is the direction everyone is going with their SUVs. They want boxiness, straight lines, chamfered edges, squared off features. Insert any other rectangular phrases you may have down in the comments because I'm running out. The box design is in. It's effective. It allows for maximum space inside, and it is a simple shape perfect for SUVs. And for the new Hyundai Santa Fe, they took that box and rectangular design language and applied it everywhere. The lights are a series of rectangles configured to make the letter H. The front bumper also forms the letter H. The wheel arches look like briefcase handles, and I love how the hood matches up with the belt line, making one continuous line like in a concept car sketch. The roof has another clean and straight line all the way through, and it sandwiches all of the glass and blacked out A, B, C, and D pillars, just like the Land Rover Defender series of cars. And then we get to the back. This is the most controversial part of the car, but also the most original for compact and midsize SUVs. Almost the entire rear face of the Santa Fe is a liftgate. It stretches from end to end, trying to mimic the lid of a birthday cake box. And this was done to maximize the opening of the hatch. The Koreans have a new car craze called chabuk, and I may be butchering that word. It means car camping. We like to do the same thing here in the States. You can call it tailgating, or combine it with some light and remote off-roading, and you get overlanding. The back end of the Santa Fe has been designed with these activities in mind. The rear opening is 6 inches wider and 2 inches taller than the previous generation, and the tailgate will also clear some of the taller people, like my buddy Jack here from Jack's Automotive, who's 6'6". And if you're not a fan of that taillight configuration, well, it's because the struts had to be upsized to lift that larger tailgate. So therefore, the taillight assembly had to be pushed further down. It's a different look, and something that you'll just have to get used to. And you think that with all the squared edges and the general large boxy presence, that it's not as aerodynamic. But you'd be wrong. The Hyundai Santa Fe has a 0.29 coefficient of drag, and that is the most surprising fact of the exterior design. Okay, now we're inside the new Hyundai Santa Fe, and let's take a look at all of the interior features. First, let's start with this dual 12.3-inch screens. We have the 12.3-inch digital driver display and a 12.3-inch infotainment system. This has all new iconography compared to the previous Hyundais. And then down here, physical controls for the more frequently used items like the HVAC controls, the volume knob, and all of these shortcut buttons. And then down here you have a 6-inch screen. These are touch controls. I know that a lot of people don't like these, but these are some of the more infrequently used controls. And down below you have your auto hold, your drive mode button, 4-wheel drive lock, auto start stop, hill descent control. The Santa Fe has one, and in your panoramic view monitors. So this comes equipped with a 360-degree camera system so that you can see all around you. And also when you're turning on your blinkers, those feeds will go into the digital driver display, which is really nice. Hyundai has been doing that for a lot of their cars, same as Kia and Genesis as well. And then down here, you notice that there's no gear shifter at all because that has been relocated down to the steering column here. That's similar to their EV line of cars. And I really like the way they do this because Mercedes does the same thing, and it really opens up the interior space here so that they could do stuff like this, dual wireless chargers. And in other wireless chargers, this bump out would affect how well this interacts with the wireless charger. And because of this raised pad, this thing is going to lay flat against the charging pad so that the charging experience is a lot more reliable. And I like the 3 LED lights here, and that easily tells me that this thing is actually charging, or maybe it's not charging. And of course, aside from that, there's a lot of USB-Cs peppered throughout the car. And over here we have a UVC button. What this does is that it will turn on the UVC sterilization tray that's right here above the glove box. I like the dual compartment here, and this UVC feature is something that you'll find in the calligraphy trim. For the other trims, this is just another compartment for you to store your items. Behind here we have a couple of cup holders, and this is a new feature here. We have the bifold system so that you could open this from the front and also from the back. That's very convenient so that your front and rear occupant can have access to the same thing. And down here we have a pretty deep storage compartment. And what I like here is that you could access this bin without opening the actual armrests. And here we have this compartment split up into 2 sections. And this front section actually hides away beneath the center console. So if you've got something that you want to hide, it's a pretty cool place to hide those things. And then down below we have a 12-volt outlet, and then a larger storage area for various other items. As for the steering wheel, we've got some paddle shifters here for the 8-speed wet dual clutch transmission. And on the left-hand side, we've got your adaptive cruise control, lane keeping systems. And then on the right, these are your stereo controls. And I love the design of the steering wheel. This looks very Land Rover-ish. And if you look up top here, this is a new feature for the Hyundai cars. This is called the driver monitoring system. So there's actual infrared sensors in this thing that will track if you are distracted or are possibly falling asleep. Over to the left of the screen, we have a fingerprint reader. And what's nice about this feature is that you could leave your key at home. As long as you have your phone with you, your phone can act as your key. And you don't even have to take your phone out when you get into the car. You could just sit inside and then just press on this fingerprint reader and it will turn on the car. As for the infotainment system, the new thing here is that they've included wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto standard in these cars. That was always a huge sticking point with some of the higher end trims of Hyundai cars. Like in the calligraphy trims, you could not get wireless Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto. So this is now a new thing that they've rolled out in the new Hyundai Konas, and for the new Hyundai Santa Fe's, this is now standard. Now moving to the second row, pretty comfortable here. We only have captain's chairs for the calligraphy trim, so this is a 6-seater, but already I could see some more USB-Cs here. Here's that rear opening armrest so that I could reach things inside, or if I don't want to open that up, I could just pull this back, and this gets me access to the items stored on the lower section of the armrest. Here we have a panel that could hold various magazines or something like that, some coat hooks. Here's more of that H pattern back here. We do have a sunshade, heated seats for the second row. On the roof, we have this micro suede finish, which looks really nice. And then we have a dual pane sunroof, which unfortunately the rear occupants cannot open. The front row passengers will have to open it for us. So let's do that. And this is a decent size, so this will provide the second row occupants and the third row occupants with just a beautiful view. Now let's get into the third row, and you can do that by pressing on this button, and it will slide the seat forward under its own spring tension and then automatically lean the seat forward. And let's jump inside and see how cramped it is in here. Once the second row is upright, you could see there's really not a lot of room. You could slide the seat forward, of course, to give you a little bit more room. But the one thing I don't like about these SUVs with third rows is that for an adult, your knee point is a lot higher than your hip point. So sitting like this for an extended period of time is not going to be very comfortable. These seats are really meant for small children or small adults. So with growing families, which is kind of like the intended function of this vehicle, this is going to be perfect for young kids. And there's also a USB-C here and also some venting so that they could be more comfortable. And to get out, you could press on this button here. And again, it'll spring forward and then tilt forward. So we're now driving the new Hyundai Santa Fe. This is the calligraphy trim. So let's start with the power. This is powered by a 2.5 liter turbo. It's making 277 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. There's also going to be a 1.6 liter turbo with a hybrid, but that's not yet for sale at the time of this filming. And that is going to be better fuel efficiency, a little bit less power. With this 2.5 liter turbo, it has good pickup. It never feels sluggish, and this is what I love about turbocharged engines, is that it has like a really nice mid-range punch. For the 2.5 liter turbo engine, it's going to be attached to a 8-speed wet dual clutch transmission. This is the same 8-speed dual clutch unit that they've used for some of the other Hyundais, like some of the N cars, the Hyundai Santa Cruz, and there may be some teething issues with this transmission, especially for this car too, but hopefully they've resolved those things. With this unit that I'm driving, I mean, this feels pretty bulletproof. I like the way it drives. It sometimes with dual clutch transmissions, there's this hesitation that you feel every once in a while. Here, when you're going from like a stop sign or like a rolling stop, it doesn't have that hesitation as much. It's really only apparent when you're really trying to thrash the car. So when you're doing a 0 to 60 launch, that's when you really feel the hesitation, because for dual clutch transmissions, it's still a manual transmission car. It still has to engage the powertrain, so there's a little bit of time involved in that. And when you're driving a manual transmission car, you still have to feather the clutch a little bit, so it's not as immediate as an automatic transmission. But compared to this dual clutch transmission to a conventional automatic transmission, the performance is a little bit similar now. And by the way, I'm so rude, I have not introduced everyone to my guest here. This is Jack from Jack's Automotive. We have been going on several drives together, starting with Destination Outdoors, and then we did the Kona drive together, and then now we're here in Nashville, Tennessee to drive the Santa Fe. What do you think of the Santa Fe so far in terms of the ride quality?
I'm really impressed with the way this car rides. One of the things that I often complain about on my channel with sort of family-style crossover SUVs is that, you know, they're geared for comfort and they can be a little on the softer side. And I don't mind an SUV that has a soft suspension because, you know, we're realists over at Jack's Automotive. My wife and I host the channel together, and she always prefers that. I prefer a sportier ride. But what I don't like in any car is when it rocks side to side. When having that softer ride causes the car to rock or never settle down. It's constantly moving because it's so soft. This Santa Fe exhibits none of that. I'm very impressed. This is an incredibly comfortable ride. The car maintains composure over rough roads, and I really haven't felt like it's rocking at all, really.
Yeah, and pardon the navigation instructions as we try to drive back to the hotel. But yeah, I completely agree with you. And in addition to just driving on these normal roads, we did take the XRT version, which is the off-road trim, and we took it on what we thought before we got there were, you know, maybe some tame routes, but it actually was somewhat challenging for like a normal crossover.
A lot more challenging than we were expecting.
Yeah, and the ride quality was pretty good too. Now let's talk about handling real quick. You know, this is not a sports car, but I don't know what they did with this new generation chassis, but it feels pretty stout. Like it doesn't like sway back and forth. It feels well planted. It's predictable when you're driving, you know, through back roads. What do you think of the handling, Jack?
I'm impressed at like how responsive the steering feels. You know, sometimes these family style SUVs, they err on the side of numbness in the steering, and you're not going to get like, you know, Mazda Miata levels of feedback here in the wheel. But like when you turn it, it's fairly quick off center and it responds. And when we were out on these trails and on these like highway stretches, it's nice. You know, it makes it feel more capable. It definitely gives you a sense of kind of assuredness in the steering. And like I said before, I love the ride. Like the ride is one of my favorite parts of the vehicle. So I think like that kind of ride handling balance, as well as the handling coming from the steering wheel, its ability, like when you're going around some of these mountain roads, it doesn't just feel like you're driving a barge, you know? I mean, this is not, they added some length to the Santa Fe, so it's not a really small SUV. It's kind of more in that mid-size SUV size. And it doesn't ever really make you feel like you're paying a price for that increased versatility with the cargo space in the third row. It still feels plenty, you know, nimble might be too strong a word, but more nimble than you would expect in roads like these up in Tennessee.
Yeah, I agree. And like for I would say 95% of the people who would buy this car, this is
Oh yeah.
appropriate, you know, lots of capability for what you need. But anyway, we've gone on long enough, I think. I want to thank Jack's Automotive for attending this event with me. Thank you for your input. And again, you could reach Jack at
Jack's Automotive and at Jack's 1079 on all social media platforms.
And if you're interested in watching the XRT version of this, check out this video over here. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching all the way up to this point. My name's Hanson, and I'll see you in the next one.